everyone. For today's 5 cards, 1 kit using the Spellbinders February 2022 card kit of the month. I'm calling the Scrap Buster edition because I've developed 5 cards that are using some of the smaller scraps. And for the first card, I used this adhesive double-sided sheet to put down on a panel that is slightly smaller than my A2 size card blank. And you can see the adhesive there, and that's going to really help me with these strips that I have on the side, and they're varying in size from about 1/4 inch to even slightly over 1/2 inch, but I didn't really measure them out because they're scraps. And I just picked coordinating pattern papers. They all coordinate because they're all part of the same kit. Now here I'm going to use some tape to tape it down just to help me keep it straight, because the important factor here is to keep them straight and not put it on crooked, especially since I have that double stick tape. Then I'm going to speed this up here as I place down the varying strips, and some of them I have more than one of, and I think they're like the rainbow one, there's only one of, but there's a few of them that I have a couple strips of, and there's a tiny bit of excess card panel on the right with the adhesive, but I'm just going to trim that off. And I'll show you here how this looks with the different strips, and none of them really match, but they all coordinate, and that's one thing that is nice about the kit, or any pattern paper that you have that's like from the same pad. So then I trim off the parts that are overhanging and the tiny bit that is excess on the side, and that's how my panel looks. And that's going to be the background for this first card. So I'm going to use some double stick adhesive and stick it onto the card base. And again, the card bases are all from my stash. And I have about 1/4 inch, I think, all around the edge there. Then I use a heart die to cut out just a plain white heart, and I have that gold card from the kit with some adhesive on the back. I'm going to take the gold card rectangle first and place it towards the bottom, and this will kind of anchor my focal point. So then I'm going to glue down my white heart here in the center of the card. And because there's so much pattern in the background, the white heart really helps to set off the focal point. I have another one of these die cuts from the die cut pack, and I put all kinds of mounting tape on the back. And here's another die cut from the die cut pack that I haven't used yet before in all 15 or 20 cards I've made so far. But I use it in this card, and I'm just figuring out where to put it on the heart because I don't want to cover up too much of it with my other images. So then when I'm happy with the placement, I press it down, and then I can take off the back of this mounting tape and put down this floral element here on the left hand side of the card. And then some more elements for this card. I have a chipboard sticker, the die cut leaf there, and then this sentiment, "It's okay," from the die cut pack. And the chipboard sticker says, "Remember this." I'm going to just add a little adhesive, and you can see it's a little wonky. It's falling apart there, so I just glued that part back together and place it in the top left of the card here. And then I have mounting tape on the sentiment, "It's okay," so it kind of balances the floral element that's popped up as well. And I'm going to put down flat the little leaves on the right hand side, tucking underneath the "It's okay" sentiment and across the other side of that hand. And then to finish off the card, I can put down the sentiment, "It's okay." And this card, that's card number 1, and it uses all kinds of paper strips. So another tip I have for you is when I cut out the heart die, there was some excess scrap paper, and I'll use a small paper punch to cut out a few little hearts in this case, or butterflies or whatever, and get a little more use out of that scrap before I toss it. So for card number 2, again, I have a white card base, and in this card I'm using I think this yellow cardstock is actually from my stash because it's a little bit lighter than the one that comes in the kit, but of course we have a bunch of scraps. Now what I've done here is I've cut 4 1-inch squares of each of these designs, each of 3 designs from the pattern paper. So I have 3 different pattern papers that have 4 1-inch squares. And so I had a few different scraps that I cut those squares out of. And then I'm going to take my corner rounder here, and on the 1/4-inch side, I'm going to corner round 2 sides. 2 opposite sides. And you could also just leave them square. It looks nice that way as well, but I kind of like the look when you round the 2 corners and then you lay it out on the panel. It almost has a floral look, like some of them almost look like a flower, and you'll see what I mean here in a moment. I'm going to place down the yellow cardstock first. And I like to use liquid adhesive to place all these squares or rounded squares down. This adhesive I'm using was a little bit sticky. I mean, it dried quicker than I liked. So I actually made, a mistake laying them out. So it's always a good idea, here I put on the screen, to lay them all out first. So the first 3 I actually glued down, but then I decided I'd lay them out to make sure I had it in the proper order that I wanted before I glued it down. And even though I think I had a picture of what I was planning, I still put them on in an odd manner, and so it kind of looked off, and when I looked at it again I was like, oh, a couple of these, maybe 3 or 4 of them, I needed to adjust. So here's your quiz, which ones are off? And here is where I'm fixing it. And I kind of wanted the corner ends pointing, so on, a few of them, I don't really know how to explain that, but do you see like the little floral type image that some of them have? That's what I liked. It kind of looks like a flower, so the corners, not the rounded corners, but the actual pointy corners are pointing towards each other. And then I'm going to speed this section up so that it goes a lot faster and just glue them all down. And that is a great way to use some smaller scraps if you have enough. And you could even try not having it, like having them all different, and just see what you like. So to finish off this card, I have another of the chipboard stickers that I had from my leftovers. It's the house with all kinds of hearts, and I'm going to place it down on the right hand side. And then I have another floral die cut from the die cut pack, and this month had tons of florals. So yeah, I even still have some, and I think I've made like 25 cards. And then finally, I'm just going to place 3 punched out hearts that I used from a scrap from that yellow cardstock. And that will finish off card number 2. And I'll give you a little bit of a close-up look here, and then we'll move on to card number 3. So for card number 3, again, we're using some rectangle strips, 3 different pattern papers that I had. I think it's about 3/4 of an inch, these strips, but I didn't exactly measure them, and you'll see that on 2 of them I've kind of torn the end. And I did that I think this is from a card sketch that I made a long time ago with washi tape, and it had the torn edge. So I'm just using that as inspiration for this card, and so I liked that torn edge. And then the middle one, I've cut the tails in to look like a banner. So this just uses 3 rectangle strip scraps of paper, and then that is the background of the card, and then a few die cut pieces to finish it off. We have 2 of the flowers, actually 3 of the flowers. 2 of them you see have the mounting tape there, and then I've got 3 pieces of the die cut gold foliage. Those 2 that you have there I've already glued together just to make kind of a swag, and that's they're 2 identical die cut pieces, and I had both of them left. But you could also probably use, you'll get the same effect with any gold foliage type die cut, or even if you had a leafy die, you could cut it out of gold and get a similar look. So I'm gluing all those down flat, and those are just going to be the anchor point for the flowers. And a lot of it gets covered up with the flowers, but they're coming out behind it. So that this first flower is going down flat. I didn't press it all the way down because I want to make sure I have it where I like it. And then the branch with flowers has mounting tape, and then this other large flower has mounting tape on it. So there's a bit of dimension there. And to finish off the card, I have the little die cut blue butterfly from the die cut pack. And I just put mounting tape right in the center, and then I curl up the wings a bit, and this is done, and it's completely all occasion. You can make it for whatever sentiment you want. You could write it in later or add something later. And then for card number 4, we're moving on quickly here. Again, we have some strips, some rectangle scraps, and they are varying in size. This first one here looks like it's about 1.5 inches wide. Then I have 1 inch and 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to use the tape printer to glue them down. I like having that little white border. That's just a personal preference. And so that's why I cut their length to accommodate that. And then each strip is 1/4 inch shorter in length, so that you have about 1/8 of an inch on the top and the bottom of space. And I've kind of staggered them across. The first one, the butterfly one, I put about halfway through the butterfly rectangle, but the green one is not as far in, so if that makes sense. And that is how that looks. That will complete our background. And again, I have a die cut white heart. I'm going to use the stamp set here. I stamped out these little branchy stamps in embossing ink, and then embossed them in the gold powder, and then fussy cut them out. And that is how they look, because I didn't have any more of the enough of the gold die cut branch foliage pieces, and I liked the size of these because they're a little bit smaller than some of the die cut pieces that come in the kit. And I also was thrilled to be able to use that part of the stamp set that I haven't used yet, so it's a great stamp, those 2 stamps in the set. So I'm gluing down the heart flat, and then I will finish off this card with another die cut piece and another chipboard sticker that I had left over. So the chipboard sticker is like a bingo card that says hugs, and then another cute little butterfly, not a butterfly, it's a bird. So the chipboard sticker, I add a little adhesive, and I'm going to lay it down flat, and I believe that I have mounting tape on the bird. Yes. And those are all scraps of mounting tape too, you might notice. Yes, so this is very scrap-tastic. And that finishes off card number 4. For the 5th and final card of this video, it is one that I believe I did the same sketch, a different card, in last month's kit. So if you are familiar with my channel, you'll probably remember it. But again, we're using some rectangle strips, and I have this first one. And actually, this first one, if you didn't have as large of a scrap, you could use narrower pieces, because I only really want what it's like about 1/4 inch, maybe a little less than 1/4 inch on each side, and the rest of it gets covered up. But since I had this size wide of a scrap, it was easiest to just glue down my other 2 rectangle scraps to this piece. And I have a gap in the middle, which I'm not worried about because I want to add a strip of gold card, and that will cover up that gap, and it's just pretty simple, pretty easy in this way. But you can also get this look even if you have a thinner strip, and just by layering them, you'll just have to be very careful with the placement. So I figure out my angle here because I want this going at a diagonal, and then I'm going to add the adhesive and lay it down, and just grab my long pair of scissors to trim off the excess. Super easy, super quick. A little snip here, and another little snip here, and the main part of the background is done. And I really like the look. It's pretty classic. So again, we're going to take the stamp set, and I loved these tiny sentiments, the miss you and the love you. And I'm just going to stamp, well, I'm going to figure out first. I love this ruler. I've mentioned it before, but it has a centering feature. So I'm going to figure out the center of my diagonal papers here, and that was the center right there. Now, if I were doing this again, I would have made my pencil mark a little higher because my ink goes right through the pencil mark, which makes it a little harder to erase, but it still erases, I think, so it works out pretty well. But if you're doing this, maybe make the pencil mark just a little higher. And I pick up some oxide distress ink tumbled glass, and I stamp out the love you and the miss you. And here I am erasing, but I had to work really hard at it because of the ink there. And then I'm going to take off the love you and then try to make the gap in between about the same and stamp the miss you again. And I do a little rocking as I press it down to try to get it even. Not even, but get it just stamped nicely. So here I'm going to prep the bottom of the card with some anti-static powder and grab the stamp set again that says, I miss your smile. And I'm just going to stamp that out in the bottom of the card with some embossing ink. And then I will emboss it in that lovely gold embossing powder. And you can't really see right now the stamping, but in person you can kind of see where it stamps. So then go ahead and get the powder on there, and there it is. I was a little heavy-handed, so my sentiment is a little hard to read, but you can read it. And this is a quick look at all 5 cards again. I hope you enjoyed seeing them. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Please like the video if you like it also. It gives me really good feedback. And I hope you'll stay tuned to see some more. I think I might be done with videos for this kit, but I've got lots of great content coming up. I do art subscription boxes, in particular Sketchbox, and journaling, etc. Whatever I have time for to get creating, that's what I love to do. Thanks for watching. Bye!